All right, welcome everybody to another exciting episode of Under the Dome. I'm your host, Allen Ulrich, here with my partner, Sean Williams. Oh my God,
Wow.
that's when you know you're going on the road. Sean, I'm always thinking about you, but
Yeah.
I have Bob Rose. That is my partner on this show. Yeah, that's what happens when you go on the road. I mean, you're just programmed. Um, it's the free agency edition, and I tell you what, there you go. I'm surrounded by idiots. I have my old throwback Reggie Bush on. I don't have anything special. Um, I, until they signed William Gay, who was one of the guys I wanted them to sign.
Same.
Um, because I mean, you had me at he spies on running quarterbacks. I'm like, oh, thank you, Jesus. We finally have a running back who can chase down mobile quarterbacks. But I mean, a linebacker. But yeah, I mean, that it's the Saints fans were losing their minds over losing guys like Malcolm Roach, Zach Bond, Jameis Winston, guys who are not starters. Okay. I like Malcolm Roach. I wanted the Saints to keep Malcolm Roach, but the dude played only 37% of all defensive linemen snaps, the lowest of all the defensive linemen. He played the fewest amount of snaps. He was a two-down guy. Okay, he's not worth $4 million a year.
No.
Probably I'm paying him $3. Yeah, what's $1 million? But you and I, it's a big deal. But to a football player, I get it. Yeah, to a football player, I get it. But he's not. It's not somebody you're going to break the bank over. And people were just losing their minds that the Saints haven't signed anybody. The title of this show is called "Same Old Lang Syne," great Dan Fogelberg song. But it's also this is what the Saints do every year. It's the same story. Let the initial wave come out where everybody throws money around like drunken sailors or Congress, one or the other. But they throw money around, way overpay for guys. So you see a lot of stars move. Then once the smoke clears, the Saints start bargain hunting. And that doesn't mean you're going through the secondhand clothes bin. It means that you're going to get players in positions of need who aren't the ones that people are just throwing sacks of money at. And that's, yeah, you're right. Bad team tax. Exactly. And that's exactly what the Carolina Panthers did when they paid Robert Hunt $100 million. Hey, man, UL kid, glad you got the bag. But, dude, I'm not paying a guard $100 million. I'm sorry. No. It's just not worth it. So, Bob, I know you've been beating the drum about a lot of players that the Saints are interested in to get people off the ledge, and they're at least stepping down now. They saw William Gay's been signed, and we'll talk about William Gay in a minute. Who are some of the guys that people should look at? That the Saints should probably look at is probably being bargain stuff, because we've seen this market kind of get set. We saw a lot of safeties get released. Receivers aren't getting very much money. Running backs already know don't get money. They're trying to trade T. Higgins, and nobody's biting on that. So, what do you see out there that's still available that's probably worth going through? Some of the second wave kind of players, and we're not even officially into free agency. That really starts tomorrow.
I know. I know the legal tampering period, the oxymoron of all oxymorons, other than government intelligence, of course. But the Saints are visiting with Chase Young, the defensive end, formerly of the Washington, and then last year traded to San Francisco. Former second overall pick from Ohio State, defensive rookie of the year. Had a few injury problems in the couple years after that, and then that light switch looked like it turned on a little bit for Chase early last year. So we'll see what transpires of that. I wrote an article about the potential pursuing of Chase Young over the weekend. I agree with the people that aren't that are saying he's not an elite player. Look, I never called him that. I agree with the people that say he's probably just chasing the money. Well, guys, you're on free agency. That's pretty much what you always do, is chase the money. I think ultimately what happens is, Young is going to weigh some offers. He's going to try to get a pretty lucrative long-term deal. I personally don't see that happening. If he does get one, it's not going to be from New Orleans. Where New Orleans would come into play is if the market for Young isn't what his representatives thought that it was going to be, and then at that point, Chase will weigh his opportunities. All things being equal dollar-wise, look at the best situation for him, which could be New Orleans, who's desperate for a premier pass rusher. Bring him in on a 1-year contract, a 1-year prove-it-to-me deal, and if that happens in New Orleans, that's a win-win for player and team. If Chase Young plays well, he sets himself up for a lucrative long-term contract, be it with New Orleans or someone else next year at this time. If he doesn't play well, the Saints just took a minor chance on a 1-year contract to fill a position of need. Monday, New Orleans brought in Avonte Maddox, formerly the cornerback of the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, the thing about Maddox, relax, Marshawn Lattimore fans. That doesn't mean that they're looking to trade Marshawn Lattimore. Literally, the two men play different positions. They're only titled at cornerback. Avonte Maddox is a slot specialist, which is something this team needs. They would like to ideally move Alontae Taylor back outside, bringing in a slot guy, whether it's in free agency or late day 2, early day 3 of the draft, would allow them to move Taylor outside. It has nothing, I repeat, nothing to do with the Marshawn Lattimore situation. I still think, I agree with what you said too. I still think the Saints at least kick the tires on some receivers. I'm a little bit surprised as well that there isn't more money being thrown around to receivers. Right now we've seen that in the free agencies past. But guys like Tyler Boyd, KJ Osborne, Mac Hollins, those guys are still, Cedric Wilson, those guys are still out there. I say those names because other than Tyler Boyd, all of whom I said are number 3 receivers, guys to fill out your depth chart, things like that. Because at this point right now, the Saints only have Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, and A.T. Perry under contract. So you better believe that they need to fill out that depth chart, be it in free agency or middle rounds of the draft. Probably a combination of the two. At this point, I think we could forget about the Saints going for a tight end. The good ones, again, came off the board relatively quickly, again, relatively cheap. And again, the Saints seem to show no interest. So there you have it. You and I were speculating last couple weeks, really, that New Orleans might go after a guard, since premium offensive tackles, just aren't available in free agency. They just aren't. A handful of good guards came off the board very early. Like you said, Robert Hunt, a guy you and I both wanted, just being given literally the Brinks truck, the key to the bank, by Carolina. I think here the Saints are just letting the guard market set itself, and then they're going to look back over and see what's left. Maybe they bring back Andrus Peat. Maybe they feel Andrus, is the better option compared to the rest of the ones, that are within their financial market. We're going to talk about Willie Gay, here in a minute, filling a big need at linebacker. Outside of Chase Young, I really don't see him going after an edge rusher. Again, unless it's a guy like Teno Passanio, a guy that's just going to be a rotational piece. And defensive tackle too. We haven't seen a lot of defensive tackles come off yet, really. Ashawn Robinson, Leonard Williams, but we figured that those would be quickly off the board. But guys like Jordan Phillips, Tim Settle, Javon Kinlaw, they're still out there. And I'm kind of waiting to see what happens with them. Maybe the Saints kick the tires on them. And again, safety depth. They lost Lonnie Johnson, who he's right in there with Zach Bond, Jameis Winston, and those guys. A non-starter who just fills out your depth chart. The Saints are going to need to fill out their depth chart at safety, but they're not going to pay a lot of money to do so. I think that much is very clear. But if you're looking for names, Jordan Whitehead's still out there, a guy I really love. Geno Stone, the ball hawk from Baltimore, is another guy to watch in the upcoming days. Simply stated, the Saints did what they always do. They're not going to get involved in that early free agent frenzy. They don't do it. It's not a decision that they've made really since they made the mistakes with Jarris Byrd and Brandon Browner. Yeah, boo-hooers, yeah, Eeyores of the world. You remember those guys? That's what happens when you get involved in early days of free agency. The Saints are still going to bring in a couple players. I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe 2 signees before the end of the weekend. But they did what they always do. They stayed out of throwing the money around, and are just focusing on positions in need rather than winning the off-season Super Bowl championship.
Well, yeah, and that's really, to me, you saw a lot of teams re-sign their players. Chris Jones got a massive contract. You did see some names change teams. And that was kind of interesting. Saquon Barkley leaving the Giants, going to a division rival in Philadelphia. Philadelphia letting DeAndre Swift go, which says something about how they viewed Swift. They brought back Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who spent a year in Detroit, and Detroit pretty much did one.
Did they? I didn't see that.
Yeah, I saw that he got his money. It's like 3 years, $33 million, something like that, to be a starter. But Philadelphia brought him back. Detroit, the stuff I was reading from Detroit, they were not going to bring him back. They really weren't interested in bringing him back. So yeah, TD Jim Everett. I put this on for Bob. So we got Jim Everett playing the Dolphins in 1995. By the way, this game here, the Saints are 0-5 going into this game. All right. And this is really directed at Twitter people, not you guys, because I know you guys are loyal fans. But Twitter people are like, oh my God, no one's going to go to these games. They're terrible. And they went 9-8. This team is 0-5. And they got a crowd out there. You can hear them, and they're into it. So, put this game on. This is a YouTube special. It's Let Bernie Do It, or Bernie's Got to Do It, or something to that effect. Because Bernie Kosar is playing for the Dolphins because this is the year Dan Marino blew out his Achilles. And interestingly, the second string quarterback is Dan McGuire, whose brother Mark was the baseball player. He was a former first-round pick, I think, of the Seattle Seahawks. He plays for a little bit because they knocked Bernie out for a short while. And the third-string guy is Doug Peterson, who is now head coach of the Jaguars. Troy Vincent's playing in this game. He's the NFL Players Director, union leader. O.J. McDuffie, that was him who just caught a touchdown pass. Boy, man, he really helped my fantasy football team in 1995. I'm not going to lie. Every time I watch him, I'm like, yeah, buddy, O.J. McDuffie. This was Schuler's last year, too. This was 1995. So, yeah, I find some Everett games. I got to put one on for Bob. But anyway, the thing about this, about free agency in the Saints, is they have players they've got targeted. They've got players they want. A lot of players, though, decide to hold off on doing anything because they want to see how much their phone rings.
Yeah.
So just because the Saints aren't signing people right out the gate doesn't mean that they're not out there trying to recruit players and get things and have things in place. And people just, we don't know because there's nothing being said about this. The Saints aren't saying, you know what, we're waiting on Chase Young to get back with us. We have an
Right.
offer out there. He's interested, but he wants to check out 2 other teams, and this is what we're offering. This is what we hear the other 2 teams offer. We're not getting that information. I mean, we're just sitting back waiting for the deal to be done. So
Yeah, and by the way, saying Alan likes to blast Saints Twitter people. I love to Saints blast Saints Facebook people. And you guys know who I'm talking. Many of you are the same people. But waiting until the second wave or sometimes third wave of free agency, that's what got your team Demario Davis, Malcolm Brown, Tyrann Mathieu. And I know a lot of you will hate, curse his name until the day you die. But remember, he had one pretty damn good season, Jared Cook. And there's a few other names, but those are the tops of the list. Bradley Roby was brought over in a trade. Latavius Murray. Players like that, players that have been very productive for your New Orleans Saints, did not come in the first wave of free agency, did not come via blockbuster trade, that you can do when you turn off the settings in Madden, and do whatever you want. So y'all can sit in your basement, and play your Madden franchise mode with all your settings on easy or whatever the hell it is you do. The Saints know what they're doing, and frankly, it's been pretty successful.
I love when we go on a rant, and that's when the internet starts jumping on us. It's like it's like whoever runs the internet is like going, okay, he's getting out of control. We got to slow his ass down here. Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of give and take going on. There's a lot of things that are happening that we're not privy to, and sometimes it is, guys, just turn the Saints down. I mean, I'm not stupid. I realize that some people look at the Saints market versus what I could do in LA, what I can do in New York, what I can do in Kansas City, what I can do in Baltimore. I get that. But if you really look at what's going on out there, you see a couple of teams that feel like they're close, spend a lot of money. The Baltimore Ravens are spending that money to try and overcome the Chiefs. The Texans are spending that money to try and take that next step. They feel like we got to the playoffs, we got to the divisional round. Maybe if we get a couple of key players, we can get past that. But some of these signings that people are seeing and freaking out over, I want to talk about. The Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons decided to go with the 37-year-old Kirk Cousins coming off an Achilles tear. Now, I know it's not like Dan Marino here. The surgery techniques have improved significantly in 30 years. But Kirk Cousins for a career and Derek Carr for a career are very, very similar. Cousins has 4 Pro Bowl appearances. I think Carr has 3. Cousins has been in the league 2 years longer, has 39,274 yards, something like that. Carr's got 39,100 yards. Touchdown interception ratio is almost the same. And yet, when you look at Saints Twitter, you would think that the Falcons just signed Joe Montana, 37-year-old Joe Montana, but Joe Montana to their roster. And, oh, God, look, the Saints have the worst quarterback situation in the NFC South, period. This is a division. It's got Baker Mayfield. Now Kirk Cousins, and there's Doug Peterson, number 14, and the mayor of the Lollipop Guild. So... oh yeah, if I'm in Carolina, I am totally doing that. Every time he comes out, I'm going, we represent The Carolina Panthers. The Carolina Panthers. I am totally doing that. That's just me. But give me a break. I mean, I like.
Sorry to interrupt. Who was who is that just posted the comment? You're not talking about me, Bob.
That's
Anna. Oh heck no, I'm not talking about you, Anna. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah. But I mean, come on, it's Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins. The media has determined that he represents mediocrity in the NFL. When they talk about other quarterbacks, they're like, okay, he's not at Baker Mayfield, not Baker Mayfield. He's not at Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and those guys level. He's more in the Kirk Cousins range, which is mediocre. Okay, right. And you're losing your mind because Atlanta signed a mediocre quarterback versus, this is the key, versus taking a quarterback in the draft at whatever pick. They're like 8, 7, something like that. Not trading up to go get one of those top quarterbacks. Not going out on a limb and maybe trading a pick to go get Justin Fields. They would rather pay a 37-year-old quarterback, I'm sorry, I'm going to keep hammering this, $150 million over 3 years. They're committed to him for at least 2 because so much of it's guaranteed versus going out and drafting a quarterback. Now, it would be totally Atlanta to go draft a quarterback at number 8 too.
Yeah.
And have him be the bust of the class. But don't you put that evil on me, Calvin. Don't you put that evil in there. But yeah, versus taking a shot, because what is it the Saints fans want? They want a new head coach, which Atlanta has now. They want a new offense coordinator, which Atlanta has now. They want to start from scratch with a new quarterback and all. This is the ideal time to do it. You just went through the Arthur Smith reign of error, and you brought back Raheem Morris, which is the good value version of Dennis Allen, but that's beside the point. But you're trying to go ahead, and this is the time to build a team. Dump all the crap that Arthur Smith has brought in there and start rebuilding your team, because I don't want to hear shit about all their weapons. Bijan Robinson, that's a weapon. Cordell Patterson, that's a weapon. But Drake London, really? Drake London? Kyle Pitts, really? The OJ Howard tight end, the latest OJ Howard incarnation tight end. I mean, really? Those aren't weapons. Those aren't guys I'm scared of. They're built to run the football. Their offensive line still stinks. Their defensive line and defensive front, which was actually somewhat decent because their defensive coordinator, he's gone. So now they got a whole new system they're going to put in there. I don't know if this team is built for that new defense or not. So spare me the whole, Atlanta's the team to beat. No, they're not. Yep. No, they're not.
No, Atlanta did Atlanta things by signing Kirk Cousins, who I've always been a harsh critic of. To me, he is a below average quarterback. But for those who like him, or for those that think Atlanta got a good signing, basically what Atlanta got was an older, more expensive version of Derek Carr, coming off of an injury. Atlanta structured their contract with Cousins similar to the way New Orleans structured their contract with Carr, similar to the way the Buccaneers constructed their contract with Baker Mayfield. So, again, you want to criticize the Saints for the way that for Derek Carr's contract as well, and then turn around and in the very next sentence, say, well, if we'd have just done what Atlanta did, or if we'd have done what Tampa Bay did. No, they did what the Saints did. And Mayfield had a wonderful season last year. Don't get me wrong. And Tampa Bay, he left Tampa Bay almost no choice but to sign him. But Atlanta, to your point, if you're the Falcons and you actually do believe that you have all these weapons, on the cusp of breakout seasons, Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, etc. Then and you're sitting with a top 8, top 7 draft pick. Why the hell wouldn't you draft a quarterback instead of paying for a guy who you're going to be paying after into his 40s? I don't get it. And again, I think you got, at best, I think you got a low budget Derek Carr. So don't tell me Atlanta improved. What they did, they handcuffed themselves financially, to a mediocre quarterback at best. They did Atlanta things. Period.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I mean, I look at it this way too. If the Saints were to have done that, let's just say that they're in a position Atlanta was in. They didn't have a quarterback. They tried. Let's say they tried this guy Winston, and this is last year, and they were at pick 8. The Saints are at pick 8. You're telling me that Saints fans would be happy that we signed Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins, over drafting or trying to move up in the draft to go take Drake May, Penix, or Daniels, doing something to move up to go get those guys? No. They would be having torches and pitchforks out in front of Airline Drive over that. And that's kind of how Falcon fans feel. If you look at the Falcon fans' responses, some of them are like, I don't know, Calvin, maybe he's there at 45. It depends on how he does at his pro day, how people feel about him. I thought he had pretty good bowl games. Now, the national championship game, he didn't play that well, but I thought he had some pretty good, he had pretty good stats. I would like for him to be there. I would be intrigued, just like I was intrigued with Will Levis when he fell all the way down to the bottom. But I don't know. But this is where I'm going with this. I'm going with this whole discussion too. So now you're the Vikings, okay? The Vikings sign Sam Darnold. If the Vikings can't get a quarterback, Sam Darnold is their starting quarterback. You let Kirk Cousins walk out the building, and you probably by this point were like, get the F out. But even though he was playing better, you're still just tired of the, we're close, but not close enough. And you've got Sam Darnold now as your starter, with a guy, who knows what they're going to put behind him, Dobbs, someone like that. I mean, that's not a position I wouldn't want to be in. I would not want to be where the Vikings are with that, because they're not that close to, and they probably will. If they get Bo Nix, that would be hilarious. That would be hilarious. I think the Vikings are going to try and go get Daniels. I think they're going to try to move up to get Daniels for the idea of, we're going to put him with Jefferson, just like you've got Burrow with Chase over in Cincinnati. I don't know what they're going to do to get there, because I think the Commanders front office is going to bed with Daniel's picture next to their bed at night. I really do. I don't think he gets past 3. So you're talking about getting up to 1 or 2. And I still think the Bears are going to trade Fields, and they're going to take Caleb Williams, who is psycho, but that's beside the point. But they're going to take Caleb Williams at 1 overall. So I don't know. I don't know how you're going to move up to get these guys. But yeah. But New England has no quarterback. They traded their quarterback away. So they traded Matt Jones to be the backup in Jacksonville. So I don't know. I don't think anybody really wants Fields. I really don't. I think they're looking at him. Okay, we got to make a fifth year option decision. Let's make let's make them cut their guy, and then we'll take a look at him. We're not trading for a 1 year rental, which is interesting with Chase Young because here's a guy that the 49ers traded for. They gave up a pick for him, and they let him test free agency.
Yeah.
So it was a 1 year rental for him. At least the Bears re-signed Josh Sweat. But yeah, there's a lot of strange things going on right now in the NFL, and some teams are making their intentions very clear. They
Hmm.
want a quarterback, they want a guard, they want a tackle, they want something, and they're not even hiding it. This is the guy they want, and this is where they're positioning themselves to get.
Yeah, and Alan, you and I, you specifically mentioned this a couple weeks ago. Minnesota is one of those teams that are making it no secret that they're after a quarterback. Denver is another team making no secret they're going after a quarterback. The Vegas Raiders have pretty much left little doubt that they're going after a quarterback. And the thing about and again, we already know the Bears. The Bears, the Patriots, the Redskins, they're all going to draft quarterbacks. So all those teams draft ahead of the New Orleans Saints. So for those of you that want a premier edge rusher to fall to you, holding on to hope that Brock Bowers falls to you, wanting a premier tackle to fall to you, this is all very good news. Forget who's signing who and who's not signing who. If you're looking at the draft, these free agency moves bode very, very well for the New Orleans Saints draft. Because again, Vikings drafting at 11, they're going to have to move up. Denver and the Raiders, draft. The Vikings, Denver, and the Raiders all draft between 10 and 13. I don't know exactly who goes where. They're ahead of the Saints, but they're going to have to move even further up to get a quarterback. So again, the more quarterbacks go ahead of New Orleans, who was never, ever, ever going to draft a quarterback in the first round anyway, the better off this is for the Saints draft.
Absolutely. And that's how I've been looking at this. I think there'll be 5 quarterbacks going in the first 10 picks. Okay, 10 to 12 picks. I think 9 is the pick that those 3 teams you were talking about. Denver, the Raiders, and who was the third team? I'm sorry.
Vikings.
Denver, Vikings. Those 3 teams all have 9 circled because that's Chicago's bonus pick. That's their actual pick, but that's Chicago's bonus pick. That's the one they're going to want to parlay into more first rounders because they're building for the long term. Okay. And that's the one where everybody's going to want to try and get to because they figure, okay, if the first 3 quarterbacks come off the board, and let's say for the sake of argument, it's Williams, Daniels, and May. So now it's McCarthy, JJ McCarthy, who I think Peyton goes to sleep with a picture of every night. Penix and maybe Bo Nix, maybe I don't even know. I have to think about who that 6th quarterback could possibly be, but it's going to be somebody who's going to get overdrafted. Okay, because there's a need, those are the 3 names that people are going to be looking at. Okay, who am I going to take? Who am I going to take out of this group? And how do I get there to take my guy so I'm not ending up with the leftovers, which was the whole premise last year that Carolina, the reason why they traded so much to go to number 1, because they didn't want to get the leftover guy. They wanted to get their pick of the guy, and they picked the wrong guy.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's just it's strange. It really is. Yeah, Tennessee is not trading down. I don't see Tennessee trading down at all. I think 9 is the pick. I think that's the pick everyone's going to target because they know they're getting the top 5, but they want to get one of those. They want to get the number 4 quarterback. That's what they want. And they think the number 4 quarterback will go at 9. But yeah, it's just I find that part fascinating because now Atlanta's taking themselves out of that mix at quarterback for 8. I think Atlanta's looking for either an edge rusher or a left tackle.
Mm-hmm.
Part of me thinks they're going to go left tackle only because they want to protect the immobile Kirk Cousins, and they want to be able to run the ball effectively, and they're going to want to have a strong side to run against.
Yeah.
They may go edge rush. I may be totally wrong, but that's just my gut feeling on March 12th of this year. That could change entirely. Saints at 14. I think the Saints feel like they're in a good position at 14 if there's a run at quarterback and a run on, say, receivers and defensive linemen. I think they look at themselves like going, okay, yeah, I know Jared Verse is a great player, probably the most polished player, probably the first defensive end off the board. We all like Dallas Turner. Dallas Turner's probably number 2 or 1A, depending on how you look at it. But there's so much depth at tackle. We've talked about this before that, I almost want there to be a run on tackles early so we have a better selection defensive tackle, because
Right.
I think those guys, those other teams that don't get it, they're going to do whatever it takes to get a quarterback. They can't afford to wait and go take a Spencer Rattler or someone like that at quarterback. So I can't see them going, oh, we missed out on Penix, so we're going to go take a defensive end, I guess. No, they're just not going to do that. Yeah, I know. Edge rusher, defense, left tackle sounds familiar. What is it, John? John, it's what Mike Desillier says all the time. You want 2 players. You want a guy that can put butts in the seats, and that's a quarterback. And you want a guy who can put that quarterback on his butt. Those are the 2 most important positions. And if you got a quarterback that can put butts in the seat, you got to put somebody there who can protect them. That's your left tackle. So yeah, that's a priority there. We talked a little bit about William Gay when we started this show. I love the signing. How do you look at William Gay?
100% love it. He was the top linebacker in my free agency piece. 4 linebackers done, I don't know, yesterday, day before, this time of year, days flow together. I love his game. I mean, he's a 4.40 guy. Great lateral movement, just blinding fast. He's not the kind of physical player that a Demario Davis is, where he's going to stick his nose in that gap and he's going to take out the blocker and the runner at the same time. He's not that kind of physical, but he's going to be able to chase down a runner from turning the corner. He's going to be able to chase down a mobile quarterback when they break containment. And his play awareness, his play recognition, football awareness, it seemed to improve a lot over the last 2 years. Because obviously we are all force-fed a lot of Kansas City football, the Kansas City Chief football. And you're right, Calvin. He is a completely different. Bond is a pass rusher, in a linebacker's body. Willie Gay is a linebacker, pure and simple. And he's going to be the guy that chases down plays, but he doesn't rely on pure athleticism. Like I said, I've seen his play recognition and general football IQ, noticeably improve over the last couple of years, and that's why it's that combination why he was my number 1 linebacker going into free agency. Frankly, I think he is going to be a great running mate with Demario Davis. No, I haven't forgotten about Pete Werner, but Willie Gay is more the linebacker that Dennis Allen wants for that defensive system. Calvin. Willie Gay is a younger, healthier version of Quan, if you ask me. We know that
Quan, better football IQ.
Yeah,
with better football IQ.
Yes, sir. The only thing I'm disappointed about the Willie Gay signing is that it's only for 1 year, but it's very much a bargain. It's only at $5 million. $3 million of that's guaranteed. Hopefully Willie Gay comes out of the gate and just plays lights out, and the Saints do what they like to do with players, entering the final year of their deal. They'll sit down and renegotiate with him and sign him to a 2-year extension or something like that at midseason. But I mean, that's getting ahead of ourselves. This is very much a big need for the Saints, and I think that they filled it in a big way. Guard, tackle, edge rush. Yeah, I know they're all needs too, but outside of maybe guard, anybody with logical brain cells knew that you weren't going to fill your need at edge rusher, you weren't going to fill your need at tackle in free agency. That was likely going to come through the draft. So the Saints did what they could, free agency wise, and again they checked off in what my opinion was a big need for this defense.
To answer Ryan's question, why would the Chiefs let him walk? Well, you got $500 million tied up in Patrick Mahomes. You got to pay, or you're paying Taylor Swift's boyfriend. You just paid a fortune for Chris Jones.
Yep, L'Jarius Sneed, you have on a franchise tag.
Yeah, you're taking. Sneed is another one. Yes, so this is what happens to Super Bowl teams and why it's so hard to do especially what the Chiefs are trying to do with the three-peat. It's very hard. No team's ever done that, by the way. The last team that won 3 consecutive NFL championships is the Green Bay Packers, and it's only because the 65 team didn't count into the Super Bowl era. 66, 67 were the Super Bowl teams. 65, 66 season, that was just an NFL championship game that they won.
Yep.
But at any level, no one has done 3 consecutive championships since that team.
Yep.
And with the salary cap, it's so hard because you're trying to keep your core together, but at the same time, these guys want to get paid. And so a guy like Gay does get let go because you just can't afford to pay him what you want to pay him to keep him around.
That and off-ball linebackers are looked at a lot like running backs are for the offense. Every team wants them, but no team really wants to pay for any. So that's why they let free agents walk. That's why they bring guys in on 1-year deals, hoping to squeeze a good year out of them, thinking that they're going to find another guy just like him the following year.
I would think that the Chiefs probably think they can draft a guy. He's 26 years old, which is very young still. But I think the Chiefs are looking at like, okay, what holes do we really have on this team? We really don't have that many holes. We could spend a little money in receivers, but Patrick Mahomes can make a lot of guys work. So they just decide we'll bring in a draft guy. Yeah, that's possible too, Matt. But it's just one of those things where you're just going to choose to risk it and think that your overall talent will make up for a guy that is, a guy that you feel is very replaceable, that you just have to make that tough decision. So, I mean, I'm not complaining that he's gone. But I understand the Chiefs' dilemma. You've got a lot of guys you're trying to pay that you want to keep around. And, Kelsey, Mahomes already eat up a good chunk of your contract. You're going to pay a lot of money to Snead because he's a key piece in your secondary. So you're just going to let other guys walk in the process. Speaking of safeties, because I was just thinking of Honey Badger Matthew, who we brought in from the Chiefs. We let Marcus May officially go as of tomorrow. A lot of safeties got released over the past few days, and only a few have gotten signed and signed to pretty cheap deals. Who do you see out there at safety that the Saints should probably target and look at as this would be a good replacement for Marcus May on the team?
I'll tell you, the top safety for me coming into free agency, and unless something has happened in the last few hours, he's still out there, is Jordan Whitehead. I've been a fan of Jordan Whitehead since college. Saints fans, you are very familiar with him from his years at Tampa Bay. Justin Simmons is another good one. I draw a lot of criticism when I call Justin Simmons a little bit overrated. To me, he's not nearly the coverage standout that people make him out to be. But I mean, his all-around game is solid. Frankly, Simmons is going to be an expensive get. We know that. Jordan Whitehead would be just as effective in this defense for much cheaper. Cameron Curl, also a guy that's probably going to command a big dollar on the market from Washington. He's a true ball hawk. We mentioned Geno Stone towards the beginning of the show, and a guy that might ring a bell to some Saints fans, released by Carolina, Von Bell. Von Bell could still play, as he's shown the last couple of years, and you're not missing a beat if you bring in a Von Bell from free agency, because he knows Dennis Allen's defense as well as anybody. I know Joe Woods is the defensive coordinator now, but that's only entitled. This is still Dennis Allen's defense. Von Bell is a plug-and-play guy that can step right in, and understand your defense and what you want to do. And frankly, Jordan Whitehead, having gone against the Saints so often, I know it was the Saints offense, but you still have to study the system. Jordan Whitehead is another high football IQ guy. I'd love to see Whitehead. But again, Von Bell, Geno Stone, even if you want to bring in a veteran like Micah Hyde on a 1-year deal, to team with Tyrann Mathieu and Jordan Howden, it gives you that 3 safety look that we know Dennis Allen likes to play.
It's funny. Matt put up Jamal Adams at LSU for the LSU safety tandem. And I'm like, yeah, probably for a couple games, then he gets hurt.
Right.
Because that's part of the reason why he got let go. Calvin's beating the drum for Justin Blackham. I don't know much about Tracy Walker to really say one way or another how he is. I like the idea of taking Whitehead away from the Bucs, though, because you make your divisional opponent a little bit weaker. Von Bell, I don't have a problem with Von Bell. A lot of fans were upset when we lost him a few years ago. Mm-hmm. There's some limitations with Von Bell. I get that. But at the same time, he gives you some flexibility. You really need a guy who can play that deep middle too, and also come down in the box when he needs to. That's why you brought back Malcolm Jenkins. But my thing is, the good news is it's position need that there'll be a lot of bargains out there, and not bad players, just bargain players, bargain contracts, because the safety market is so down. Mm-hmm. Micah Hyde is a fun player. And again, the same thing. You're weakening a rival and you're bringing in a good player. So it's interesting. We'll get to the draft in a few weeks after free agency, but there's some players on there already. I'm like, cross him off the board. Do not draft this guy. This is a workout warrior. We've already had this problem. I don't want another one of these guys, because it's like saying some of these names are like, Marcus Davenport's still out there, say free agent after a year in Minnesota. Oh, no, I take that back. Marcus Davenport got signed by Detroit. Yes. Yeah. You're right.
You think Aaron Glenn, of all people, would know better, but who am I to say?
They both. This is the thing that, drives me crazy when people say, I don't know why they even drafted this guy. Because this is why people sign this man, because everyone thinks they can unlock that talent. They know the cheat code to unlock that talent because he is so big and so fast and has such a huge wingspan.
Mhm.
If you were to draw a defensive end up on a blackboard as ideal, this is the ideal defensive end you want. Davenport would probably fit all of it. It's just there's something that's not clicking, and he becomes a coach killer because of it.
Yeah.
Because there's something that's not clicking that prevents him from being who you want him to be. And it's maddening because I understand the thought process behind it. And yeah, you can bring up Lamar Jackson, bring up all these guys they could have drafted instead. But in a position of need at that time, he is a guy that if we put this, he's going to play 12 years
Hmm.
at defensive end and be like Reggie White reincarnated.
Yep.
Um, and there's a few more in this draft class that remind me of Davenport. So,
Yeah.
you know, that brings me to a point I wanted to talk about on the show tonight too. The Saints and their obsession or their high priority of relative athletic scores, RAS scores, and their obsession with athleticism. It seems like that the Saints really target guys who are physical freaks. You
Yeah.
know, Penning was another one. You just go down the list of guys that they feel like, even Zach Bond to an extent, who are
Mhm.
physically very gifted, but they're not great football players, or there's something going on it keeps them from being great football players. And as a result, we've had weak draft classes. And as a result, we've had to sign more free agents. And as a result, we're over the salary cap every year because we've got so many of these contracts of older players and free agents that we have brought in because we've missed on the Zach Bonds and the Peyton Turners and the Marcus Davenports and on and on and on. Should the team be looking at maybe reevaluating how they look at players? Should there be something that they're going, maybe we need to get people who aren't as physically gifted but are better football players? Do you think that's probably the answer?
I think that conversations certainly have to be taking place. And remember, they did bring in somebody, a significant new name into the scouting department, at least to work with them through the draft. You and I both think he's going to stick after the draft, but we'll see. Um, so yeah, Jeff Ireland, Dennis Allen, Mickey Loomis, all those guys, all the top brain trust, they certainly have to have those conversations because it doesn't. I don't consider myself a smart guy, as much as I joke about it. But if I can recognize the fatal, consistent flaws behind the drafting of Peyton Turner, Marcus Davenport, Trevor Penning, Zach Bond, all of them ended up approximately the same way. It looks like Isaiah Foskey is trending that direction. I mean, after 1 year, I'm not nearly ready to give up on him yet, but that based off of what we've seen early on. So you have to have that conversation. And just as you and I talk about when both privately and on the show here, when we talk about the combine, and you and I pretty much have the same old school type of mentality. That's great. And I love those drills. I love to watch them. I'm a track guy. So it carries my interest a little bit further than the average person. But we're talking about an NFL football team here. I want to turn on the film and see if my guy can play football before I draft him. I'm not knocking on small schools, but your film exposure to a Davenport, to a Penning, were extremely limited because of the caliber of competition, and just how physically dominant that they were. There is a flaw somewhere in the draft process because, again, you and I just spit out 5, 6, 7 names just like that, just without even thinking.
Mm-hmm.
That shared similar fatal flaws. So we can all agree that the Saints have to get this draft right. They have to hit on these picks. Otherwise, there's going to be a lot of people out of jobs. We're staring into the abyss of of total annihilation. To a franchise that not too long ago were legitimate Super Bowl contenders. So you better believe that those conversations should be taking place in the scouting department. Now, when they draft these players, in a month or so from now, and so 6 weeks from now, we'll see. But I totally agree with you that there's something wrong with the process.
And it's funny because they have managed to find good skill players across the board and good secondary players. Paulson Adebo, Alontae Taylor, very good players. Jordan Howden. You just go back to 2017, 2016, even though he's gone now. Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Deontay Hardy when he came here, guys that they found as undrafted free agents.
Yeah, and Von Bell, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, looking like A.T. Perry. So I think I know where you're going here. Certain positions they hit right. So you really need to go to the scouting department and say, hey, I want to know what's going on with your mentality, with your thought process at linebacker, at defensive end, maybe at offensive tackle, but I mean, you're batting 50-50 there. For every Trevor Penning, you're getting a Ryan Ramczyk. Those aren't as bad odds. But obviously at edge rusher, and linebacker, your scouts need vast improvement.
Yeah, and it's almost like you want to tell them, I said, look, for those skill players, it's a speed game. Great. Look at those relative athletic scores. But when it comes to edge rusher, when it comes to offensive linemen, when it comes to maybe some linebackers, let's stick with some fat guys here. We need some fat guys out here. Fat guys who just play hard and good football players. Linebackers who flow and attack and have a high football IQ. That's what I want to see out of this, and guys that they're not coming off injury histories too. We did pretty well for a while avoiding injury guys, because there was a time it seemed that that's all we were drafting were injury people or injured people. Guys trying to recover from knee surgery and things like that. And we got away from it for a while, and then we go and draft Kendre Miller, who I like Kendre Miller, but he came off a knee injury at from Texas Christian. So 14. Here we go. Yeah. 6'11" too. That's what's scary about it. That's what sounds right. But yeah, those are the kind of players that we just need to get good football players. Guys give me more Taysom Hills, but Taysom Hills that can rush the passer and Taysom Hills that can flow as linebackers. That's all I asked for. I know you didn't draft Taysom Hill, but that's a guy who's a football player who knows football. So, it's frustrating. Bob, is there anything we should look for this week? I mean, you said that you expect maybe a couple signings this week. Do you expect them to do anything with Alvin Kamara's contract?
Yeah, Alan, they almost have to. They got into the black this afternoon, salary cap wise, with restructures and all the other deals that they've made. But they were in the black only by $1.8 million. Well, you just signed William Gay for Willie Gay for $3 million on your cap, so you're back in the red. When that hits. So, you do have to do something with Alvin Kamara, and a couple other guys, and they're going to do what they always do. Saints fans who are expecting a big splash, you're going to see more contracts like we saw with Willie Gay. A 1-year contract offer to Chase Young, maybe. I'm speculating. Looking at bringing in a safety, a Micah Hyde, a Jordan Whitehead, for a 1-2 year reasonable deal. Those are the kind of deals that the Saints are making, not washed up players. I can't stress that enough. Not washed up players, just players that can immediately help them at positions of need at reasonable cost, exactly like Alan laid out for you earlier. Those are, and I do expect the Saints to sign 1 or 2 more players at least before the end of the weekend.
Exactly. I think so too. I think we're going to see a few players. Alvin Kamara can't play on the contract that he has right now. I think they do something similar to Demario Davis's contract, which, thank you. I'm glad the Saints did Demario right. And who knows, maybe a year from now, age suddenly catches up to him and this is like a bad deal. But I think that if you can get a contract similar to what Demario signed, where it lowers his cap hit, it puts some more incentives in there, and then you get a much more workable deal for Alvin, because I really think Alvin's going to have a big year this year.
So do I.
This offense is built around his abilities, getting him into space, doing all the things that make him the most dangerous running back the Saints have ever had. And I feel like that's what you're going to see out of this team. Calvin asked this question: who's the last Saints legit speed rusher off the edge? Would you say Will Smith, or would you go back a little bit further than Will Smith, like the Joe Johnson or Wayne Martin?
Maybe Junior Gillette.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to. As despicable a person as Junior Gillette is, he was a hell of a pass rusher for about 1.5 years, 2 years there. So yeah, I don't think you have to go back as far as Joe Johnson or Will Smith. I think you just have to go back to Junior Gillette. But I get your point. It's rare here. Which is why, again, I think their interest in Chase Young, the potential. A lot of people are comparing him to Marcus Davenport for bad reasons, but look at the good reasons that Davenport attracts teams to. That's the same reason people are interested. Teams are interested in Chase Young. Chase Young gives you that kind of potential if he wants to play and if he stays on the field.
Yeah, that's the key. That's the key. Unlike Davenport, who I don't question Davenport's effort. The only I questioned about Davenport was his durability and his availability. It seems like every little injury was 6-8 weeks it would take him out of a game, not 3 or 4. And then you go back to Ricky Jackson driving into the back of a tow truck, and he's out 3 weeks with 2 weeks out, 2 weeks with a modified helmet. I mean, he wasn't missing. He was not missing a game. Last question before we get out of here. So Jameis Winston's gone. Jameis Winston, the player, to a certain extent. Jameis Winston, the person, to a greater extent. He was a good teammate. He did provide energy in the locker room, well liked and stuff. But I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to miss his fan club.
No.
I'm glad he's gone, so I don't have to hear about this anymore. And you're deluding yourself if you think that he's going to replace Deshaun Watson, because there's a few $100 million reasons why Deshaun Watson's got to stick around. He's just he may have an opportunity to play some games because Watson misses so many.
Yeah.
But they fully committed to Watson. But with Winston gone, who do you see the Saints bringing in as a backup now?
I'll tell you, and anybody who watched that last game of the year knew that that was Jameis Winston's last snap as a New Orleans Saint. Let's not kid ourselves. And I know, Jake Hayner's got himself a little bit of a fan club going on too, and look, I like Jake Hayner's film in Fresno State. I did, and frankly, I like his fit in Kubiak's system. But what we don't know is, does Kubiak like Hayner's fit in Kubiak's system? If he does, then Derek Carr's backup might very well be Jake Hayner. Personally, I still think they go out and sign, look to sign a veteran. And we saw a lot of number 2 quarterbacks come, get signed off, in the last 24 hours. And really, if you're curious who's left, without anybody else releasing anybody right now, Mason Rudolph, Carson Wentz, Tyler Huntley are the 3 names that jump out to me. No, thank you. To each of them, no, thank you. It still wouldn't surprise me if the Saints brought in one of those guys to at least provide competition for Hayner. Which, if you're going to look at it from that aspect, from that perspective, rather, then that's not a bad thing. Make Hayner earn his number 2 spot rather than just give it to him and then hope and pray that Derek Carr doesn't get injured. So I still see that scenario developing. But at the end of the day, even though I'd have bet money that they would have brought in Sam Darnold because he knows Kubiak, Sam Darnold or Drew Lock because they played for Kubiak. Neither of those happened. They're both now with other teams. But again, Mason Rudolph, Carson Wentz, Tyler Huntley. None of them inspire any confidence whatsoever. But it wouldn't surprise me if the Saints at least brought in one of those guys, to, if nothing else, make Hayner earn that number 2 spot.
I mean, is Gardner Minshew even available, or did he get re-signed?
Vegas got him. Vegas signed him today.
That's right. Okay, Vegas signed him. All right. I couldn't remember. I honestly could not remember. But Jimmy Garoppolo is still a possibility. He's not officially released, but he will be released. That's going to happen. And I think a lot of teams will probably be fighting for him to be a starter. So that's what you have working against you. Jimmy Gumbo said Flacco. Flacco kind of, if Sean Payton was the head coach, I'd probably say Flacco is very likely because he liked those old veteran guys that really maybe you play a couple games, but you don't want him out there that long as a backup. You think about Mark Brunell behind Drew Brees, those guys. Of all the things you're worried about, actually backup quarterback is probably one of the lesser ones, only because Carr got pretty beat up this past year, broken rib, 2 concussions, injured shoulder, and he never really missed a game. He missed some snaps. Winston got in for some snaps, but he didn't start a game. And that's something that Carr kind of prides himself on, is playing through pain. So I think they look at the backup position accordingly as somebody that, this is a guy we just want as a sounding board in the room. I mean, Andy Dalton could come back, if Carolina lets him go. I don't know if they will. I don't know what Carolina's doing. We really didn't talk about those 2 teams real quick. Tampa hasn't signed anybody yet.
No, they've done what the Saints did for so many years.
Yeah. Carolina's throwing money around, but at the same time, they're giving away talent. Brian Burns, they traded for next to nothing. So there's weird stuff going on there. I still don't think they know what the hell they're doing. I did finally see some Panther fans comment about some of the stuff Carolina's doing, and they don't get it. They really don't understand what they're trying to do. So
I'll tell you, Alan,
Yeah.
I like the signing of the two guards. I like bringing in Damian Lewis. I like bringing in Robert Hunt, despite overpaying for them. It shows that you want to protect your quarterback. I get that. Then they turned around this evening, and they traded for Deontay Johnson from the Steelers. So, okay. I see what you're doing there. You want to, start giving receivers to your quarterback. But to get Deontay Johnson, who, by the way, I've always felt is grotesquely overrated, you traded Dante Jackson, your best quarterback. So, again, you lost your three best defensive players. You didn't bother. You're trying to re-sign Jeremy Chin. You traded Brian Burns, and you traded Dante Jackson. So Carolina doing Carolina things.
Yeah. I don't know what their game is. I really don't. I mean, I like the head coach that they got, but I don't know how long he's going to last because this owner is going to want instant results.
Yeah.
He's going to say, I put all this money in this offensive line. How come the team's not better?
Mm-hmm.
Well, because you just gutted my defense, So now you put even more pressure on my quarterback to win games because every week's going to be a shootout. I don't know. Tampa, like you said, they're doing kind of what the Saints did. In fact, when we were talking about quarterbacks earlier, Baker Mayfield, Carr, and Cousins, we're the Spider-Man beam. With the finger pointing, because that's basic. We're all pretty much the same. Yeah, Calvin pointed out Dallas and Miami haven't signed anybody either, and Miami has lost several players now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be, and Miami is somebody who feels like they're close. They're trying to make that next step. Dallas feels like they're close. We're trying to make that next step to get to that Super Bowl. And yet they didn't sign anybody. In fact, they've lost players. I thought it was interesting that I should have known this was going to happen, but I thought the Cowboys were really going to be all in on Derrick Henry, and he goes and signs Baltimore, which fits. He gets to play in the same division, stays in the AFC, black and blue division, playing, against the Steelers, the Browns, and the Bengals now instead of the AFC South. But you feel like you're on a team now. You got a chance to win a championship with that team. So I don't know what the Cowboys are going to do for a running back. Are they going to? I guess they're going to draft one. It's strange. It like I started the show. It's a lot of strange things going on where teams aren't even trying to hide what they're going to draft. They're just going to let that position hang out there and say, you know what, we're going to fill it all in the draft. That's what we're doing. We don't care who knows it. So, yeah, Dallas doesn't have a running back. Bob, what do you have going on for the Bayou Blitz tomorrow night, or is it going to be Thursday night?
No, we're doing tomorrow night. Brendan and I are going to be more free agents. More free agent talk. We're going to talk more about who's still available for the Saints, at positions of need. And, with these guys coming off the board pretty quickly, over the first 2 days, I expect more of the same tomorrow. So we'll be able to talk about who's left. I think Chase Young is supposed to visit with New Orleans tomorrow morning, so maybe we'll get some news out of there. And more perspective that you and I shared tonight about what's this mean for the draft? Not only for the Saints, but equally importantly for the teams ahead of them, and who could that cause fall to New Orleans at number 14, and things like that. Again, more free agency talk. Saints fans. You intelligent Saints fans, the ones that tune into Under the Dome, the ones that tune into Bayou Blitz, you guys know what the Saints do every year. And I see, some of you might still get a little impatient, but you realize there's a plan here. There's a plan with Willie Gay. There's a plan, evolving as all these big money guys, come off the board. Why hasn't Daniil Hunter been signed yet? Maybe if the Saints juggle some, finances, would it be for a guy like Daniil Hunter? I doubt it, but I mean, just
he got signed by the Texans tonight.
Oh, did he? Was it official? Okay.
Yeah.
But again, if you sign Chase Young, does that lessen your need at edge rusher? We'll have those kind of conversations going forward as well.
Yeah. I thought it was funny that uh, Will Lutz agreed in principle to a contract with Jacksonville, and then he changed his mind and went back to Denver. And Ralph Marlboro commented, he says, after Sean Payton left several threatening phone messages on his phone. But yeah,
Will Lutz, the only kicker that Sean Payton has ever liked.
I'm telling you. And Thomas Morstead's still out there. I'm that's my other guy. I want them to bring him back because I want to see Morstead for his last curtain call. And I think this is one of his last years he'll be kicking. And I would really, really, really enjoy a Jimmy Graham type reunion with Morstead just for old time's sake. And man, it'd be special. It really will be. So we'll talk, obviously follow up with Bob tomorrow night in the latest. We will talk again on Tuesday about the about the free agents they signed, some of the contract money moving they did, because you still have to clear enough money to have your draft class.
Yeah.
That's still important. They still have enough money for that. So there are some more moves they're going to have to make because they don't let you draft if you don't have the money to pay these guys. So yeah, there's some more stuff to talk about. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the guys they signed over the weekend. If anybody moves that happen over the weekend, Sean Payton is doing what every coach does. We kind of talked about this in the beginning, but Sean Payton is doing what Bum Phillips did when he came to New Orleans from Houston. What every old coach does, Bill Parcells did it. Bring in the guys that know your system so you can sell it to the rest of your team. Malcolm Roach is just another example of that guy. But yeah, stick with us next week. We'll see you next week. Join the Bayou Blitz tomorrow night. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you later. Good night.
Good night.